Get ready, artists. Something exciting is happening in Monet Cafe Studio. The unveiling of some pastels from the heart of Spain that I know you are going to love. These are Mamut Soft Pastels. In this video, I'll take you deep into these gorgeous colors, testing them on different pastel surfaces, and even doing some painting demonstrations to show you what they can truly do. So settle in and get ready to discover what might just become your new favorite pastels. I'll first begin with a quick little peek at the website, which is arranged so beautifully and organized. If you go to the About section, you will meet the creator, Alan. He has been so great to work with. I think you'll enjoy reading his bio and learning a little bit more about him. And he also has a background as an amazing photographer, which you can really tell by this next section on the website I'm going to show you. I've never seen this done so beautifully. He has a section called Color Chart, and he has painstakingly taken amazing photographs of every color and color number. And again, his photography skills really show here because it is so hard to get good representations of colors online, and I just think he's done a brilliant job with this. The two sets that I'll be reviewing are the Basic Landscape Intense Colors and the Special Greens 2 set. Both are wonderful, but I encourage you to check out the website and just admire all of the gorgeous sets. I love how he has curated his color selections and palettes for all of these sets, and I'm definitely getting more. I'd like to browse through these amazing product reviews while I share a short message with you about a current and temporary shipping situation. The wonderful pastel company I'm featuring today is based in Spain, and right now there's a temporary tariff situation that's affecting the cost of shipping to the U.S. We don't know exactly how long it will last, but I wanted to be transparent about it and share a few thoughts. While I fully support our government and the goals behind these trade negotiations, I also understand that smaller artisan companies like this wonderful pastel maker can feel the strain until things settle. These pastels are truly special, handmade with incredible care and quality. So if it's within your means, it's a real blessing to support a small company like this, even if the price tag is a little higher right now. All right, are you ready to check out these gorgeous pastels? First, I have to mention the packaging. Oh my goodness, I've never received a packaging for a pastel set that was this quality. The wood box is gorgeous. I love the little gold buckle too. And they're arranged so snugly in their little foam sections. And I want to first show you, they're called baby pastels. Don't you just love that? And I want to show you their actual size. So I'm putting some pastels down of different manufacturers. The first one was a half stick unison. Keep in mind, these first two are half sticks. The second one's a half stick Sennelier. This one is a Jack Richardson hand-rolled pastels. Looks like a half stick, but that is their full stick. And this next one is a Diane Townsend full stick. Hers are pretty large, and I love all of these pastels. The next one is a Terry Ludwig, so recognizable from their kind of rectangular shape. That's their full stick, the only stick they have. They have no half sticks. This last one, oh, you know I love Earthberry pastels. It's somewhat of a flat rectangular shape. Again, a nice large size. And using those as a reference, you can now see the size of the Mamut Pastels. This is what he calls a baby pastel. So don't let the name fool you. You get a very good value for the price. And I think he calls them baby pastels because he has some larger pastels, but that's for another video. Now I want to show you some of the things that I do when I get a new set of pastels. I don't always do this, but often I like to make me a little color chart. Now this is really beneficial if the actual pastel labels have the color number on them, which these do not. But again, he has that wonderful color chart system on the website. In this case, I just took a photo of the set of pastels, and you guys probably know when you print out a photo, the colors are not the same as real life. So I just go in and make a little swatch or mark of color right there on the sheet. You can also print it out in black and white. I actually prefer that. And this one is the Basic Landscape Set Intense Colors. I will talk about these sets and their colors in a minute. But another reason to do this is if you run out of a color that you're using and you just love it, you'll be able to go back to your sheet and determine it and buy another if the company sells individual sticks. And the next thing I do is if the pastels have labels like these, it's time to take these labels off. Now, this is normally a pet peeve of mine. I just want to get to painting. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out, even though I was tearing these off, I went, oh my goodness, many of them actually just slide right off. It seems like he wraps them in a way where sometimes you can get it to come right off. Sometimes you can't. But I would say about half of them, I was able just to pull the label right off. And oh my goodness, look at the undressing of these pastels. That sounds funny. They're so gorgeous. I wanted to zoom in on this on real speed so you can just get a glance at the beauty and the amazing color of these pastels. And something else that I often do is take my color notes and just put them underneath or somewhere in the box and whoa, what is this? I did not even know that I got a little note from Alan with a special handwritten message of what the pastels are, the name of the set, and more. So I did the same thing with the Special Greens 2 set. And again, I just wanted to undress them so that you can see the beautiful colors. I particularly loved the row of neutrals in the right column. Notice that? He has a wonderful way of arranging his colors. Now, let's talk a little bit about pastel surfaces. I do this often when I get a new brand of pastels that I've never used before. I like to get various surfaces and just try them out. This is Canson Mitons, it's called. It's a French name, and it's an unsanded pastel paper. So I'll do a quick demo on that just to see how they perform on an unsanded surface. I'll also be creating a painting on pastel matte. I love this surface because it's water friendly, but it's actually kind of smooth. So that's a little bit of a variety of a surface. And I thought it would be a great way to experiment with these Mamut pastels. And I'll create another 2 paintings on this Canson velvet. It's a new favorite surface of mine, along with many of my patrons on my Patreon page. I happen to have kind of this scrap piece. It is also water friendly and very durable. One will be dry with no underpainting. I have a lot of artists who ask me to do that because I always do underpaintings. And of course, I had to try one of my favorite techniques, which is to create a warm underpainting and liquefy it. This time I used alcohol. And because I just had to play with some of those gorgeous orange colors and warm tones in these pastel sets, I had to create this painting. Now, this will be a special content on my Patreon page. Now, before we dive in, if you're tired of me talking about becoming a patron and you want to get all this extra content, it's real easy. It's only $5 a month. Not only do you join my Patreon family, get extra content, you help support this channel and keep free videos coming to so many aspiring artists. And now I have a little sheet of Canson unsanded paper. It's called Canson Mitons. And I wanted to just play around and feel how these pastels apply on this surface. And typically with unsanded surfaces, if you're using very soft pastels, like these are definitely considered very soft. The softest pastels have the brightest colors, like these. And they're just typically the best quality. But sometimes because they're soft, you cannot get many layers on an unsanded surface. But I was surprised that, watch how I even layer another green on top here, and I can still see a little bit of the underneath color. That's what you want. So I did a very quick study. This is not the painting tutorial. Those are coming very soon after this demo. But this was just me coming up with something out of my head just to play around with the layering ability. And I noticed something else that was pretty interesting is typically very soft pastels are pretty crumbly and they have a lot of dust and residue. And you can see I'm working flat here, and even though there's a little bit of dust, it's not that much. And I could already tell just in doing a little bit of practice and having some fun on this surface that I was loving these pastels, and I couldn't wait to apply them on a more serious painting. So now I'm going to have fun with this one. I chose this reference image from unsplash.com, and this time I'm working on the Canson velvet. I'm going to make a tall, probably about a 5 by 7 orientation or size. And I'm going to speed this up. It's just the underpainting sketch. I'm using a Prismacolor new pastel. These are, for me, they're great for doing sketches. I often like to choose a color that's a bit more unusual than something like gray or brown or black, and something that might be within the painting. And I often like to do warm underpainting, so I typically choose some sort of warm color for my sketch. As I mentioned, I'm going to do this one without doing any sort of a wet underpainting or underpainting really in general. I'm just starting using my sketch as a guide and working and blocking in my values and colors. That allowed me to really play with the set. That first color I put down was a purplish gray, pretty dark. It was one of the darkest ones in the basic landscape set. And then I used that kind of taupey gray color. That was one of the other darks in that set. And now I'm using a middle value gray just to get in that value of the road. I know this isn't necessarily a teaching tutorial. It's more about playing with these pastels, but you know me, I can't help it. And as long as you get the value right, you don't have to have the exact colors. Matter of fact, it ends up being much more fun when you choose creative colors. Now, I loved this green. It was a really nice value for some of these cooler greens down in these shadowy grasses. And notice I'm just making fun directions marks at this phase. Now, when I was first beginning to paint period, but I miraculously and wonderfully found the medium of soft pastels when I was first setting out on my painting adventure, and I would have never painted this way. I would have tried to pick every color exactly the same. I never would have had these loose directional strokes like this. I wouldn't have known, and I didn't know, that pastels can layer, and that's the beauty of pastels. We're creating and building a painting by layering colors and mark making on top of each other. And it creates much more of an exciting end result and a much more painterly style. And I wanted to mention that I chose these two sets just because I loved them. They're not necessarily sets that are all inclusive, like you could paint so many different scenes with them. I just knew I needed a few more greens, and I also really loved just some of the softer green tones and other colors in the special greens set too. So occasionally I will grab another color or another brand of pastels, especially in the later other paintings that I'm doing with these. But notice I've used almost all, I think I have used all, except for the sketch, all of the Mamut Pastels thus far. But at this point, I did want a little bit more of a dark value, so I grabbed a few other pastels and a few cooler tones. This is, I think it's the Terry Ludwig eggplant color. It's a really great dark. You can buy this in an individual stick, but only from the Terry Ludwig website. No other retailers has it. And I grabbed another kind of a nice neutral darker gray for some of the shadowy sides of that road, and that pretty little cooler blue just to give another cool tone to that road. And I did notice on the Mamut website that he has a wonderful set of darks, so many sets. You literally have every color you need to create a beautiful painting. And I think I'm going to get his set that has purples and pinks in it too. I'm addicted. Yes, I am. You guys understand. We are such color addicts. I also grabbed a pastel that I had whittled down to a little bit of a sharper point just from using it so much. I think it's a Sennelier dark green, and I just glazed and layered in a little bit of that tree shape, keeping my strokes fairly light because it's kind of sparse with its branches and leaves. And now I'm using a Mamut pastel. I believe this one's from the Basic Landscape set. I love this green. It is such a nice dark to middle value green with such a pretty earthy color. Sometimes it's hard to find greens that just feel true to nature. And this one's a little bit lighter and a little bit cooler. And oh my goodness, this makes for great distant trees. Often it's very hard to find a good color and value for distant trees. And I typically lay down a value that's a little bit darker at first and then gradually lighten it up as the painting progresses. And finally, I'm going to play with some of these beautiful blues in a combination of cool and warm. That one was a little cooler, a little more turquoise. Look at this gorgeous gray blue. It's such a beautiful sky color. color. And oh, lo and behold, it's great for some of these little highlights maybe in the road as well. And this next lighter blue I'll be adding is a favorite of mine. I love the color Periwinkle. It's kind of in between a blue and a purple. This one's really kind of a light blue, but it leans just a little bit lavender. And oh my goodness, are these not the perfect, beautiful, golden, yellowy orange colors? And again, I thought it was awesome for that setting sun. This one's a little bit lighter, and I carved it in negatively into the tree. That's called sky holes or negative painting. And you're just painting what's behind the tree rather than trying to paint the tree into the sky. Oh, look at this beautiful light turquoise color. Often colors in the sky get a little bit warmer as it gets down closer to the horizon. Remember how I mentioned before, often like those distant trees, I'll get a layer first that's a little darker, and then I'll gradually just glaze or layer another color on top of it, like this beautiful turquoise color. Look at that. I just layered a little bit of it over those distant trees and into some of those grasses, and it's just bringing this painting to life. Can you feel that? Now, did I see that in the image? No, but because I know a few little basic rules about how color and value behaves in nature, it gives me the sky's the limit. I can choose colors and values based on those simple rules rather than what I see necessarily in the reference image, and it always makes things more fun. Like I always say, painting is easy once you know the rules, and the rules aren't all that hard. All right, let's turn on the sunshine. I grabbed that beautiful yellow. It leans a little bit green, but it was the right value, and my even lighter yellow to just get the sun really shining. This is such a beautiful brown ochre color. Now, to me, this is doesn't it look beautiful in the grasses? Again, I didn't see it in the grasses, but the value works. But this color is one that I don't find a lot in other pastel sets, and it's pretty unique. I love it. I used a blue that I felt worked regarding value in the scene, layering a few horizontal marks in the distance to give the feeling of maybe that road or some waterway in the distance. And I liked working without an underpainting. I haven't done it in such a long time, so thanks to all my followers who have actually requested that. Now, I did want to see how does it blend, and rather than getting out a blending tool, I just took my finger, and I had to be careful with it because my fingers will get dirty and you'll contaminate your colors. Oh my goodness, another favorite color of mine. Look at this deep, very earthy and neutral magenta of a darker to middle value, and again, just popping it into a few places is bringing this painting to life. I love to use a pop of color. I have a little system that I use. Some of you may have seen my video about the color wheel, and my patrons got a special little add-on that they could put on their color wheel to duplicate my system. But to me, those little pops really make a painting sing. If you like color like I do, look at this gorgeous. Isn't this interesting? It's kind of an orange, but it leans a little like a cool orange. And I was so enjoying this first time using these pastels. I've had them a while, and I had so much else going on with some other painting themes and goals that I was just itching to try them. So I am a huge fan of these pastels. And I love just creating this really fun, energetic painting with no underpainting and exploring these gorgeous colors. And I think you guys can tell from my enthusiasm that I totally love Mamut Pastels. And I have really loved working with Alan, the creator and owner of this company. And I really pray that these tariffs get lifted soon, but I also pray that many of you, it's not that much more, we'll just bless him and help him out with buying some of these pastels. All right, so I had to play with this painting and put it in my little app that I use to put it in a frame, and that was a lot of fun. And now I'll create another painting on this Canson velvet using an alcohol underpainting technique that I love. I'm just using regular drugstore alcohol. I like to use 70%, and just any kind of brush and some paper towels. Now, what I first do is give myself a generous amount of alcohol in a jar. And yes, you could also use water if you like. I found a beautiful reference image once again on unsplash.com. I will provide these images in links in the description of this video. And I was really drawn to these blue flowers because I knew that Alan from Mamut Pastels had sent me these little sample beautiful blues and this gorgeous purple. Now there is, I think, a blue in the landscape set that I got that's similar to the ones that he sent me, but I'm just going to play with those with these flowers. So I'm doing the same thing, just giving myself a general portrait format for this painting, and I'm once again just using a Prismacolor NuPastel. I really like using these to sketch with. Often I will do more than a sketch though. Rather than outlining something, I like to do what I'm doing here, which is kind of laying it on its side a bit and blocking in some shapes of the trees. Now I'm going to go with a warm underpainting palette. I'm now switching to a yellow, and the reason I'm doing this is yellow is lighter in value than the red. You can see in the reference image that the trees and those foreground grasses are kind of the darkest thing in this image, and the sky and the distant field is lighter. So I'm using this orange color again to get in the deeper colors in the foreground, and I gave a little indication of a trail just leading the viewer underneath some of the other painting colors that I will add later. And I'm going with a darker red now to even deepen and darken the values a little bit for some of the trees that are closest to me, and a little bit more in the trail. And because skies are often just a little bit darker high up in the image, you can even see that in this reference image, I'm adding a little bit of that original first color just in little areas where I see a little deepening of values. Now the fun begins. I am going to use my alcohol. Again, I have a brush. This is a cheapy brush. It's just somebody who saw my video thought it might be a turkey basting brush. I don't even know, but I always say use a larger brush. Don't get a teeny tiny little brush. My paper kept moving, so I decided to tape it down. So I'm dipping my brush in the alcohol, and the paper towel is really to control the amount of alcohol on the brush and to wipe your hands off like I'm doing now. And I realized that I was getting a little bit too much alcohol on my brush. So I'm just moving that alcohol around and down a little bit. And what this is doing, it's liquefying the pastels, and it is causing it just to blend on the surface, filling in all of the lighter areas of the paper. So it's a great way to begin a painting for multiple reasons. You're kind of establishing a little value study immediately, but it also sets the pastel into the surface. You can actually, once it's dry, kind of rub your hand across it, and you're not going to get pastel residue on your hand. So you're almost gaining back a layer from your surface by doing a wet underpainting like this. And I have found that when I use alcohol this way in a jar with enough alcohol, that I don't even have to rinse my brush out in between switching colors, because the alcohol kind of rinses your brush out as you're dipping it in there. So it's pretty efficient. And I'm blowing it dry just to speed things along. And one thing I forgot to do was to try the Mamut Pastels as a wet underpainting. I forgot to add any alcohol to them or water. Like I said, you can use water as well. So I'm reestablishing some of these dark colors. Now, these are not the Mamut Pastels here. These were some of those darker purple and neutral kind of purple there color that I had used in the other painting. And I'm just using these because I know I have to get a little bit more dark values in some areas. The darkest dark that I had in the Mamut, I believe it's the basic landscape set, was kind of a dark gray, and it was a nice dark, but I wanted something just a little bit darker for this. And I have already seen they have a gorgeous set of darks on the Mamut site. So I am so anxious to get more of these pastels, and I've just got to decide which sets I want to get. Now, this is a different technique you can do. I'm using a piece of pipe foam insulation, what you use to insulate your pipes. You can get at any hardware store, and I like to just cut off a little piece and use it to blend. This is going to not only soften the painting, making it a little more impressionistic underneath, but it's going to kind of blend some of these pastels, making it not quite so chunky looking. And now I am using this gorgeous turquoise. You can see it was from the basic landscape set. Just like I said with the underpainting, I like to get a little bit of a darker value in the upper heavens. That's what happens in skies. Typically, the values get a little darker as you go higher, and they typically get a little cooler in color, but you've got flexibility with that. And I could see that there was a lighter turquoise in the special greens set. And now this beautiful light turquoise here that I'm just bringing the lighter values down towards the horizon line. And you can see my hand searching around for different colors. Now this is a beautiful, almost a periwinkle color. It leans a little bit purple. It's a light blue. And as you can see, the pastels will start to blend themselves. I accidentally got too much of that dark down there, but you can see, you can just cover it right up. But I like leaving them a bit unblended at times rather than blending things to death. And I gave a thumbs up here. I love this color green. Often when you have distant trees, they are a little bit cooler in color temperature. Cooler greens lean more turquoise. Warmer greens lean more yellow. Now this green is also gorgeous. A beautiful earthy. I love earthy greens. Both of these greens are very earthy. And those are great to use for distant trees because if you use things that are too punchy in color or too vibrant in color, you're going to cause those trees to feel like they're close to you. And so now I've got a little bit more of that pretty purple I used in the foreground just to give that idea of deeper areas of the tree down towards the roots and thick branches. Now this green I'm going to hold up here, that's the first green I use for those distant trees. And I'm looking for a green that's just a little lighter. That's it. Now, even though it's a little bit warmer, the value is right. It's a little bit lighter, and lighter values will cause those trees to feel even further away. But as I often do, I usually get a value that's just a little bit darker down first. So I'm not stuck with just one value or one color of trees in the distance. It's much more interesting to lay down a few layers, 2 or 3 of various values and colors. Things just come to life and look much more interesting. Oh, now that's a beautiful green. I will be using that one later. But I'm now going to work on this field. I'm trying to block in the majority of this painting. You notice I'm kind of working top down. I don't always do that. But I used that really beautiful light green, even though it was a little punchier than I normally like to use in the distance, the value was right. And the values of things in a field and everywhere get a little lighter as they go further back, just like those trees I was talking about. The same thing applies with other elements. So now you can see I got in a middle value green in that middle area. Now this pretty cool green that I think that's the one I had already used before, just to glaze in this cooler green on some of these deeper grasses. And notice I'm not layering things to death. Now I'm just kind of blending things together to connect them. But I'm not pressing so hard. Well, first of all, I'm not pressing so hard that I'm covering up my underpainting. There's little image or flecks of that color that you will see through the final painting even. So keep a light stroke with this. We're not trying to press so hard and just fill everything in. Now I'm going to zoom in a bit more so you can kind of watch this in action. Notice I've got a green that's a little lighter in value and a little bit warmer than the first greens I put down because this is going to represent, or that was going to represent some of the sunshine catching on some of those leaves. And I get cooler color temperatures as I paint things that are deeper in shadow. Now, there is a little warmth in some of those foreground grasses, so I dappled a little bit of that in there. And now it's time to work on these flowers. Can you see that underpainting showing through? Doesn't it make the painting look so much more interesting? And I'm just choosing some of these blues. As I typically do, like I've mentioned multiple times already, I like to get in a value that's a little darker first, especially for flowers that are going to be buried. If you look in the reference image, there is one flower almost where I'm putting it right now. It's very dark. You almost can't see it, but it's because it's in shadow. It's buried in the grasses. Not a lot of sunlight is hitting it. And then as flowers get higher above the grass blades, they're catching more of the sunlight and they're going to get a little lighter and brighter in value and color. And this photo was already really great. So a lot of times I will get interpretive with where I place the flowers. And I change it up a little bit, but it was really already pretty nice compositionally. And obviously flowers get smaller as they get into the distance too, and they follow all of the same principles of value and color as everything else. I decided, I did change things up a bit. I felt like I needed one impact flower, a focal point. That's been the focus of this month's teaching theme over on my Patreon page. We're talking about focal point and how to tell your story through your painting, and how you don't always have to paint what you see, but you can lead your viewer in areas that will impact the journey and where you're wanting to take them and what you're wanting to show them. So this is my focal point flower. It's using a focal point principle, a couple of them actually. It's a little bit larger than some of the other flowers. It's kind of in a little bit of a different position. It's reaching up higher. So those things are called contrast. And anytime you present contrast in an element in your painting, it's going to get attention. Think of it with people. You see somebody really tall, you're going to notice them. You see somebody amongst a crowd of all dull colors and they're wearing a bright red shirt, you're going to notice them. It's just, it's the same thing with painting. But that one flower, also a principle that can be used is one called isolation. When you have something that's apart from the crowd. And this one's not that much of an isolation principle, but you get the idea. Same thing, a group of people all standing together and then one way off on the side. You're going to notice that. So those are just a few little tips of for focal point ideas for you to implement and use in your paintings. Now, while I've been saying that, look at this gorgeous blue. This is that blue that he sent me, and I think it is the same blue in the set. And oh my goodness, it's electric, isn't it? And I often like to get in a few different colors in my flowers. It makes them much more exciting. Now that is one of the blues that's in the set, and I just wanted to check it to see if it was different, and it is. You can't see it much in the filming, but it's a little bit lighter and just a little bit of a different color, and it gave a little interest to these flowers. Now I often like to add a little purple into my blue flowers. Again, just makes them so interesting, and I'm just popping in a little bit of blue into some of these trees, like in some of the shadowy areas. I'll blend them a little bit more in a minute, and that's something that's called color echoing, where you take a color in a painting and you just kind of put it in other places. I got a little bit of a turquoise color there and added it to some of those distant trees as well. And here I'm just testing some of the blues and teal colors. I wanted to add a little bit of turquoise in these blue flowers, and that one was a little too light. I try to go dark to light. I use my lightest values last. Oh, this one was perfect. Do you notice in the flowers in the reference image that there is a little bit of that teal color? And I liked it. So I thought, let's just go with it, because the photo, again, already has such beautiful flowers and color energy going. So I'm really just putting this in little spontaneous areas that will represent some of these little. Is this wisteria? You guys, my patrons, know I hate to say I'm flower challenged with naming them, because my mother was such an expert on knowing all the different plants and flowers. She was like a botanist, but I always have you guys to help me. So I added that turquoise. Now, watch this. This is one of his purples, the Mamut Pastels. Look, can you see? I hope on your screen you can see just what that purple does. It gives it so much more interest. And so on my typical fashion, I try to echo the color in other little places. Now, I see often at the base of trees, there will be a little shadow. And I can tell that the sun is kind of behind those trees, so you would get a little shadow. And purples are great for shadows. And all you need is just a little suggestion. Often when we're painting and we're beginners, we're overdoing things, where really all you just need is a little hint and suggestion, especially if you like a painterly style. And this is a blue that's not a Mamut pastel. I was looking for a blue that was just a little bit lighter and a little cooler to glaze horizontally into the distance. Doesn't that give the feeling that those flowers are just really receding into that distant field? And I got another little kind of bluish purple to give a little bit of a shadowy area to some of the field and the grasses. Now this is a warmer purple. Warmer purples lean a little bit more towards magenta or pink, and cooler purples lean more towards blue. So I thought it'd be pretty to put in a little bit of a warmer purple like this, and it gave a little bit of interest and color excitement. I'd also like for beginner artists to notice how I work the whole of the painting. Notice how I'm kind of moving around all over the painting, trying to establish things as a whole versus getting caught up on just one element. Now, trust me, when I was first beginning to paint, pastels was one of the first mediums I tried seriously. I mean, I had done, like so many people, kind of playing around with acrylic and watercolor, but I started just falling in love with soft pastels after I kind of figured some things out. But when I first got started, I would wear out an item or an element. I would just work a tree or a flower to death, trying to get it to look like I thought it should look. And it was through lots of watching videos. I'm totally self-taught, and experimenting and practicing and doing lots of studies and studying many other artists that I learned that it is a process of layering. And often your painting doesn't look very finished for a while. Oh, by the way, I wanted to pop in here. I added a little dark there for some of the tree trunks, but notice how I just softened them up when I added a little bit more of those greens, kind of carving down some of the thickness. So anyway, I'm just trying to encourage beginner artists. So it is very doable, friends. Now, I'm speeding this part up so you can see how I'm adding little leaf and grass suggestions. I'm not trying to paint every leaf like I see it. I do like to notice what the pattern or what the shape of the leaf looks like. And these are kind of little sharp, almost little jaggedy edges to them. So I just really give a little suggestion, and it stays much more painterly that way. I also try to keep things very random. Now, I am adding a little bit of a darker green. This is not a Mamut pastel. It's a very dark Sennelier that I really love, this dark green. And again, I want to get the set of darks from Mamut Pastels, and you can bet your bottom dollar that I'm going to do a tutorial anytime I get a new set of Mamut Pastels. And I like to add a variety of greens. This green is, I always call it a little bit more of a grass green. It doesn't lean too warm or too cool. I love that little neutral green there, green blue. I didn't use it much there because I realized it was too light. Now I'm just getting a little bit more. I don't want to get too many marks in this bottom section because I want to keep that dark rooted feeling of the shadows. Now I'm gradually going to start lightening things up. This is putting the sprinkles on or the icing on the cake, where I'm adding brightness and color in areas that I think will harmonize and really make an impact with respect to focal point and just overall color and energy. I decided I wanted to give a little bit more of a brighter and a lighter value purple on some of these flowers. And I don't want to do this just monotonously to every single flower. I'm looking for flowers that might be catching a little bit more of the light. And isn't that a beautiful, I believe that's a Terry Ludwig pastel I just used. Just a little bit of that light purple. Now, what I'm doing here is a process that's called negative painting. I'm carving negatively into these tree shapes. Notice how even the trees in the reference image, even though they're very blurry, you have some spaces showing between the branches. Those are often in art called sky holes. And I had no idea how to do these or even why you should do them when I first started painting. But it's one of those things that just gets better the more you do it. It doesn't always come naturally. So you just keep trying. And eventually you kind of start to do these things without even thinking about it. Yes, it does finally start to happen like that. Now, often at the end of a painting, I like to give it a little bit more pizzazz or just fun motion and movement. And you can do that often with a few lighter values. I think mostly what I used were really light blues. And now I'm using, back to my Prismacolor new pastels. I've had this one set pretty much when I first got started more seriously with pastel painting. And they last a long time. They're harder. They're great for making little thin, grassy, sketchy marks. And I added a little hint of some little dark areas in there. That always gives a little focal point interest as well. Now I'm giving just little fun, wispy, thin, light grasses. And you got to be careful at this stage not to overdo it, which I have a tendency to do sometimes. So I better slow down on the grasses right now. I wanted to give a little hint of a stem here, so I just got a little darker pastel and gave it a little gestural mark and added just a little bit of that dark deep inside some of those flowers where it was a little darker. And I played around with a few of these little darker like seed pods, but I felt they were a little too dark, so you'll see my fix for that. All right, so at the end of a painting, I love to find a punchy color. There's where I kind of muted that out. A punchy color that will just add a little bit of a contrast of a color, and in this case, I wanted to use a pink. My underpainting was very warm, and I thought it would make a nice little color burst. And here I'm zooming in for you to see things a little more closely. There's those gorgeous Mamut pastels, and I would say it was both of these. It was like 80% Mamut pastels for both paintings. Now is where I'm going to experiment with the pastel matte, and I loved this surface with the Mamut pastels. Now this is going to be a Patreon exclusive lesson just for my patrons on my Patreon page in a separate video. So patrons, I'm going to bring you this tutorial using Mamut pastels and other brands for painting this Tuscan scene with some really fun color palette selections. So I think you guys can tell from the excitement in my voice, I absolutely love these pastels. They are definitely one of my new favorite pastels, and I have really loved working with the creator and owner of this company. So I hope you guys will give them a try. Those of you who can handle the little bit of extra cost right now, but I do think that's even going to change very soon. I'll have a link to Mamut Pastels in the description of this video. Also, become a patron of mine to get all the extra content. Please like this video, subscribe, of course, and leave me a comment. All right, guys, as always, God bless and happy painting.